Been a while since I recorded without sunlight, huh? Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today, I'm gonna be talking about the 5th album from David Guetta, Nothing But the Beat. You know, after finishing my One Love review, I started to think, do I actually hate this guy that much? I mean, he's stupid, he's not worthy of my respect, but One Love technically did, in fact, bring me a fair bit of enjoyment, especially as I was writing down all my thoughts and picking apart the deep layers of stupidity that the album had to offer. I don't think I've ever had that much fun writing a review. If nothing else, he was a fun punching bag. Maybe I'd miss him if his career turned out to be over now. Well, then I listened to Nothing But the Beat. And now I remember exactly why I so thoroughly hate this man. Like, I remember when I first discovered David Guetta and looked up the track listing on iTunes, I thought to myself, wow, I've never seen an album that gave me so many reasons why not to listen to it. The album was covered in pop star features, and at the time I still didn't know or care about Billboard or pop music in the slightest. Besides maybe a Todd in the Shadows episode now and then for a laugh, maybe. But curiosity got the better of me, I gave it a listen, and forgot it almost instantly. Only the really bad tracks left any impression on me. I re-listened to it later, and again, left little to no impression on me. And then I re-listened to it for the review proper, and my god, this album is awful. And I don't just mean that in the generic pop life fashion where I ranted a lot but didn't actually find the listening experience to be anything more than just mediocre aside from one or two painful songs. No, the entire first disc of this album was straight painful to get through. Oh, by the way, yes, first disc. The standard edition of Nothing But the Beat is a double album. If I'd heard the idea of a David Guetta double album after knowing who he was, that alone would send shivers up my spine. The first disc, aka the vocal album, is just radio pop material with people like Chris Willis replaced with ubiquitous pop stars like Nicki Minaj and Chris Brown. Not an upgrade. But the good news is that the second disc, the electronic album, is entirely instrumental. While I'll give Guetta credit for including an entire second disc of instrumentals, the instrumentals only highlight his shortcomings as a composer and producer. And on top of that, when he's not blasting generic EDM sounds with some occasional 8-bit Nintendo-esque sounds, he's drowning in his Daft Punk influences again. The second disc isn't even close to as bad as the first, but you probably want more detail than that, right? I'll go through individual tracks. The album starts with Where Them Girls At, which, without exaggeration, is a straight duplicate of Sexy Bitch. Seriously, it is the exact same beat, just in a different key. And instead of Akon making an idiot of himself, it's Flo Rida making an idiot of himself in front of Nicki Minaj, and instead of trying and failing to come up with a respectable compliment for this girl he meets in this club and falling flat on his face, Flo Rida opts to not even try and just straight up asks the girl if he can fuck all her friends. Oh my goodness. The shocking levels of laziness on this track really blow my mind. Even Nicki Minaj's presence isn't enough to redeem it. Like, she actually starts rapping in one part, which, actually sounds pretty good until she starts up this thing. And, oof. Then there's Little Bad Girl with Tayo Cruz and Ludacris. Now, Tayo Cruz is terrible. He clearly doesn't give a shit about the song, and he pretty obviously can't really sing and is covered in auto-tune. Although I did actually like Ludacris on this song. The guy has a nice flow and actually retained his personality. But that's cancelled out by a beat that either leaves no impression on me or at the end straight up rips off Daft Punk's Aerodynamic, which is a recurring pattern on this album. Ripping off that Daft Punk song in particular, I mean. Well, then there's Turn Me On. Turn Me On's beat isn't offensively bad or anything. Actually sounds a lot like Steve Aoki, who at this point had not yet even released his debut album at this point. So, Steve, you might have retroactively lost a few points with me here. But then there's Nicki Minaj, who adds absolutely nothing to the song, besides a performance completely devoid of personality. Heck, she doesn't even really sound that much different from any of the other female performers on here. Like, the song Night of Your Life with Jennifer Hudson sounds exactly the same. Well, Nicki does try sticking a tiny little rap verse at the end last minute and actually tries to sound like herself. And while yes, it actually does sound like Nicki Minaj in that part, well, yeah. I may not mind Nicki Minaj, but geez, she can be annoying. Right, Without You. Without You's beat also rips off of Daft Punk. Also sounding like something in between Aerodynamic and Digital Love, minus the flavor. I suppose there are worse bands to rip off, but seriously, at least Guetta could sound original on previous albums. Nothing Really Matters is unremarkable, aside from the fact that will.i.am may or may not be going to the club to dance away other people's problems. Also, this 4 chords beat is so disingenuously calculated, it kinda makes my soul hurt. Then there's I Can Only Imagine with Chris Brown and Lil Wayne. Sounds great already, doesn't it? But actually, it's not the worst thing ever. Sure, Chris Brown's performance and Lil Wayne's section don't match up at all, and Lil Wayne's section is attached to one of those mediocre drops like some of the worst tracks off of One Love, minus the interesting. Not to mention, I don't think I've ever heard Lil Wayne sound this disinterested. But Chris Brown isn't slimy enough to make his section fall flat. I don't know, his voice harmonies and the generic enough lyrics that purely limit him to imagining rather than taking any extra steps. I guess it sounds alright. On the other hand, we have I Just Wanna F. This song features Timbaland, of all people, along with Devin Afrojack. So, it's gotta be at least a little more fun than the others, right? Actually, no, this song may very well be the worst song Guetta has ever produced. Like, this song is beyond unlistenable, with a beat devoid of substance, or even melody, and is just noisy for the sake of being noisy. And then there's the lyrics, which show the song to basically be another attempt at a joke song like Atomic Food, but it doesn't work. It instead makes everything even more deeply unpleasant than the beat already did. The song's about sex and uses tons and tons of corny Alphabeat references that just make less and less sense as they go on. And also Dev talks about getting it on like Charlie Sheen, and just no. Any of the other songs on this album I can see, like, working in the club to some capacity as mindless filler or something, but this song just makes me want to run as far away from the album as fast as possible. You know how I hate LMFAO, because I feel like they're trying to be stupid on purpose. Well, that's the same feel I get from I Just Wanna F. It's got this sense of sick self-awareness. They know it's unlistenable shit, but they don't care and do it anyway. It taints the whole rest of the album. I can't think of any redeeming qualities of this song at all, and I don't fucking want to talk about it anymore. It pisses me off so much. The last song off of Disc 1 I have anything noteworthy to say about is Titanium, which, unlike any of the other songs, at least has the added benefit of being catchy, and also features Sia, who manages to be the only female performer on this album who doesn't totally lose her personality under Guetta's beat. So of course Guetta then tries even harder than usual to suck her personality out with one of his most atrocious drops yet. Probably the worst on this album. I Just Wanna F doesn't really have a drop. And it's not like the funny kind of awful, it's just it just sounds like crap. Sia still sounds like Sia on the verses, but on the drop she's buried in the mix of this overly loud and obnoxious beat, which is pretty ironic considering the lyrics are about being made of titanium and being resistant to any attack. Maybe the lyrics are actually directed towards Guetta himself, trying to tell everybody that no matter how hard he tries, Guetta won't be able to do anything to stop her performance. So Guetta responds with the loudest beat he has, completely assaulting her, leaving her with little to no individuality. What an asshole. The other tracks on disc 1 have nothing particularly notable. They're not great, they're not terrible, they're just forgettable. Even though we have performances from people like Akon, Snoop Dogg, and Jessie J, none of them say anything particularly notable, or in Akon's case, particularly stupid either. They've got no purpose outside of mindless club filler. Speaking of mindless club filler, let's talk about the second disc. Though none of the instrumentals are particularly bad, at least not even close to disc 1, once again, they just leave no impression on me, and only highlight how devoid of talent Guetta is as a producer. And on top of that, there still isn't a single song on here that isn't co-produced by someone else. Here assistance is provided by Frederick Reisterer again, as well as Giorgio Tuinfort, and also Avicii and Afrojack on selected tracks. The melodies range from ripped off from Daft Punk again to not really memorable. But there are a few tracks worth mentioning, I guess. The Alphabeat does have a cool vintage piano intro and outro, and also one section in its build-up that randomly changes its mixing, which I suppose is interesting. And although the melody is very close to a Daft Punk ripoff, it's at least memorable for those moments. Lunar is nice, it's really propulsive and it has a nice build-up and progression, but it is unbelievably repetitive. It's not bad, though. The closer, Glasgow, is fairly similar to Lunar. Not as much intensity, but more tolerable overall, I think. Then there's Sunshine with Avicii. Now, you'd think I'd hate this song, and while it does, in fact, feature Avicii's trademark annoying overly high-pitched synth setting, I don't know. Like, the melody actually kind of makes me feel something that, isn't rage or boredom. So, I think I'll give this one a pass. It's not great, but it could have been so much worse. Given that very few of these songs had a melody that left any impression on me, yeah, I'll take what I can get. Toy Story has a lot of vocoder, which is cool, but it's still trying way too hard and failing to be like Daft Punk. I think the song The Future has some strings on it, which ordinarily I'd like, but here they're superfluous and calculated, and add absolutely nothing, much like on Rachel Platten's Fight song. Oh, and there's also an instrumental of Little Bad Girl on disc 2, but it actually doesn't stand out at all. I gotta say, that's really a testament to how bland these beats are. The instrumental to one of the better songs from the first disc completely blends in with everything on the second, and took me several listens to even figure out when it started. Well, I guess that's basically everything. So, overall, this album is complete garbage. But for real this time. Disc 1 was painful to get through without any of the funny kind of stupidity that plagued One Love, and Disc 2 was bland and generic. Anything I might have liked from this album isn't good enough for me to return to after this review is done. Like, the best track was probably Sunshine, and even that one, let's face it, is still David Guetta featuring Avicii. The one good thing I can say about this album, though, is that at the very least, it's not false advertising. There's no substance to this album whatsoever outside of some mediocre middle-of-the-road Swedish House Mafia-esque beats that I suppose make for something to continue moving to a beat while in a club. In other words, it's basically nothing but the beat. So, overall, I'm feeling... Well, for disc 1, it's like a 2.7 to a solid 3. But for disc 2, it's only like a 4.7, so I guess for the full package, let's go 3.5 out of 10. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it. But I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time. Oh god, I dread next time.